this time, my tips for confident Norwegian concern using conversation lessons to your best advantage so that you benefit from them, so that you don't feel stuck, and also so that you don't feel that you're wasting your time in them, because that's the feeling I've had from very many students, that they showed up for the lesson but then they didn't make that good a use of it. I have 2 points that I want to make. These are coming out of your comfort zone in the right way and having an agenda for that lesson, your own agenda. And let me now dive into it and explain what I mean by both of these. So, coming out of your comfort zone, the learning, it needs to feel good in a way. You need to feel safe, you need to feel secure, you need to be interested in the subject matter, otherwise, you are getting blocked. That is all true. On the other hand, learning does happen outside of your comfort zone. And you know this probably from other areas of your life, that the most learning, the steepest learning curve, as it's euphemistically called, like when you have to really learn a lot of new things in a very short time, that's very much out of your comfort zone very often. So if it's too much, you might get blocked. But if it's just stepping out and then maybe catching your breath and stepping out, right? And stepping out again, then you are learning. So this is crucial. I have taught quite many conversation courses for language schools and so on during my career. And what I always see in all of these groups, all of these courses, is that the students have different attitudes towards the learning. And some of the students show up for the course and they are expecting the magic to happen, right? But they are not prepared to step out of their comfort zones. And how this manifests in a way in practice is in particular by repeating the things that they already know. This is one aspect of speaking. Sure, there is this aspect of daring to speak to others, and that is for sure a gain for them as well. But at a certain point, everybody gets used to talking to their partner on the conversation course, and that stops being an issue. So we kind of grown and reached the limit of the conversation course in that sense. But as I view it, as a teacher and a designer of conversational courses, I view them as a unique opportunity for not only getting used to speaking to people, because you get used to speaking to this restricted group, right? Which is a jumping step towards all the others, but still you can get used to that quite quickly. But I view them as an opportunity to build your vocabulary, your functional vocabulary, your real life vocabulary on those topics that are covered by the course. Yeah. And if you get on the course and only repeat the things that you have known for ages, then you're not learning very much. But it feels comfortable. That's why we all do it, right? So this first crucial point is overcoming this obstacle in a way, because your brain wants you to keep safe and not to, make any big waves. And, like your brain doesn't want you to rock the boat at all. But all new things are outside of that comfort zone. So we need to dare to step out and to push ourselves a little bit, not too much, not when we feel that this is wrong, but a little bit. And for example, to implement that phrase that the teacher has written on the whiteboard. It is there. And what many students do when they see that a teacher has written a phrase on the whiteboard, they will copy it down and they will think to themselves, that's a really good phrase. It seems useful. I'll put it on my vocabulary list and I will learn it. And then I will start using it or something. Yeah, I think most students just think so far as to make the promise to themselves that they will learn it. But the fact that you memorize a phrase, let alone the fact that you have to find the time to memorize it sometime in the future, and you might forget about it and other things might get in the way, right? So it's not sure you do that either. But when you memorize a phrase, there is still no guarantee that you will be able to use it in practice. But now you are sitting on a conversation course and the phrase is in there, it's pertinent to the topic you are discussing. So what the successful student does is they grab the phrase and immediately they try to implement it in what they are saying. And this is stepping out of your comfort zone, right? Another example that I think people would benefit a lot from doing or testing out is changing your speaking partner. Because this is very, very uncomfortable. I know it. I hate it myself, like mingling, you know. I like the fact that I have found somebody I can speak with and I don't want to mingle, right? But if you are sitting at a course and there are maybe 12 people, maybe 20 people, and you spend the whole course talking to your neighbor, right? And many teachers facilitate changing groups. But sometimes what I experience is that when I ask people to change groups, that some people would be reluctant, and sometimes there is a reason for it. I know this, I realize this, that sometimes there are some people on the course who don't have a great attitude, for example, and they don't speak that much or something. But mostly this is because we have gotten used to this partner we have worked with. We don't feel like standing up because our chair is warm, and we don't feel like, you know, changing the partner because that's somebody new, and talking to somebody new is stressful. Yes, but the conversation course is a unique opportunity to practice this, because in practice, when you imagine yourself attending a company event, for example, like julebord, right? You also have to mingle if you want to talk to the people, and it's for real in a way. So this is really, you know, it's a missed opportunity if you don't push yourself at that point and be like, okay, I don't feel like it, but I will change my partner because this is a good thing to do. This is how I practice. And then it's going to be easier in the real life situation. Yeah. So if your teacher asks you, be happy that they are facilitating and making it easier to change groups. If they don't ask you, you can try to change yourself. Like, guys, shall we mix? It's really good, like when you talk to new partners, right? Because you have to react in another way. And what you also can do, you can practice your phrases once more without boring your old partner, right? Because we learn the best when we repeat. And you can't repeat the same thing over and over again to your old partner. But if you change partner, you can test out the same phrases on them. They don't know, right? So it's beneficial in many ways. There is a nice thing that I can share with you here, because I know how hard it is to actually go and change the partner, both socially and in terms of the language setting. But I have been following this American coach called Mel Robbins. Maybe you know her. She's like super famous. And she has this 5-second rule. She says, like, when you know that something is the right thing to do, but you so don't feel like doing it, you have to hack your brain by starting to count backwards from 5 to 1. And then you go. So you go like 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, go. Right? And then you change. And this technique that she is sharing, I've been using it myself, and it actually really works. So the next time you're like, I know I should find a new conversation partner because that's the right thing to do, that will maximize my learning and prepare me for the real life conversation, you can test it out. Yeah, Mel Robbins and her 5-second rule. It's really, really good. Okay, so this is it, stepping out of your comfort zone, both with testing out new phrases, trying to implement, and with finding a new partner, even if you don't feel like it. And by the way, everything that I'm saying, it goes for conversation courses, for sure, but it goes also for the free Språkcafé, right? Doesn't it? Because when you get there, there is not going to be much pedagogical agenda. Maybe there will be some facilitation for changing groups, maybe not, really depending on the type of Språkcafé, right? It can be a speed dating kind of event where you are pushed to change. And it might be quite free, where you sit at the table and you stay there until the end. Yeah. So you have to work on it a little bit yourself. And also at the Språkcafé, there's typically not going to be a teacher offering you new phrases. So you have to take this into your own hands and get your own phrases that you can be practicing ready. And that brings me to the second point. So the first point was getting out of your comfort zone, like really push yourself a little bit out, because that's where the learning is hidden. And number two is have an agenda for the conversation lesson. Sure, if it's a paid course, then your teacher has an agenda prepared for you. But this is one size fits all, because it has to be, because it's a group course, right? And if it's a course that you buy at a language school, which is not prepared with you, like the specific group in mind, but it's prepared for a level, right? Then it's going to be one size fits all even more than if a teacher is preparing it, for example, as a follow-up program for students that they already know. That's a little different, but still it's for a group, right? So even if the course is very structured, and there are big differences between paid conversation courses as well, of course, because there is like anything out there on offer. But even if the course is structured in terms of having clear-cut topics and the teacher offering relevant vocabulary for all the topics, or even, for example, giving out texts as homework or videos that the students would watch or read, and then they gain more vocabulary and more topics to speak about, that's really good in my opinion. That's how I would run a conversation course, yeah, providing some material in advance so that students have the chance to recycle as much as they can from that and learn something new. But even if the teacher does that, and even if they offer the vocabulary, put it on the whiteboard, be like, even encourage this stepping out of your comfort zone by saying, okay guys, now we have these phrases that really fit the context well and models for you and shows you how to do it, then the phrases might be a great fit for you, and they might not. Maybe accidentally the teacher has offered some phrases that you already know very well, and you don't need to implement these because these are a piece of cake for you. Or maybe they are showing some phrases that you just don't feel like learning. This is not your thing. And in that case, you have to have your own agenda and just figure out your own phrases. And you can do this in multiple ways. You can, for example, know in advance which topic this is. And if your teacher offers some materials in advance, then really go through them and pick maybe, let's say, 3 phrases for the conversation lesson. Don't overdo it, because if you pick 10, then you're not going to implement any of them properly. Yeah, but if it's a lesson of 45 minutes, pick maybe 3 phrases, maybe 5, depending on how difficult they are for you, right? If it's longer, you can pick more, but the more you pick, the less you in a way implement each of them. But pick some phrases of your own interest, pick them as they are so that you make sure to get them right. And then when the teacher puts you in the groups and they say go, then you know, okay, here is my post-it and I have these 3 phrases on it that I am practicing today. And that's such a great thing to do, because then when you are leaving the lesson, you know exactly what kind of work you have done, and it's quite tangible. Many students attend a conversation course and then at the end they're like, I'm not sure what I learned here actually, right? And sometimes you don't learn very, very much at all, because if you repeat the thing that you already knew from before and your partner that you always speak with does the same, then none of you are going to progress much or lift each other very much. So this is very, very important to always have some phrases. And if it's such a conversation course which is only about free speaking and your teacher doesn't, for example, offer these modeling materials in advance, you can find some. For example, if you have the topic of, let's say, health and healthy eating, which is a common topic in conversation courses, you can watch some lifestyle videos on YouTube in Norwegian. You can read some texts, right, in the newspapers. You can check some sources on that topic that you know is coming up next time. So again, take it into your own hands and prepare some phrases. 3 are enough, right? Don't overdo it. No high bar. It's gonna be enough and you're gonna progress and learn. So this is very, very important that you have a plan for the lesson on your own, not depending on whether or not your teacher is going to offer something like that, or if they will offer exactly the thing that you need. And very often, you don't need to be practicing phrases that are super specific to the topic either. So maybe you don't know the topic in advance, like with a free språk cafe, or sometimes your conversation course might not have them. Or this is also, of course, pertinent to the speaking parts of a regular lesson, isn't it? When there is this 10 minutes of speaking in your normal Norwegian course, you don't know which topics there are in advance, but you have different phrases, different pieces of language that have been hard to implement for you. All of us have that. Something where your mouth always stops, something that you always get wrong because you always get the preposition wrong and you already know what the right version is, but you can't seem to implement it. Great, put those on your post-it, and when the speaking comes, take it out and be like, this is my agenda for the speaking. You are practicing something, but you can be putting these in because very often these problematic phrases are not topic specific. These are very often phrases that we can use in any context, like på grunn av or whatever, right? It can be anything that you know you're struggling with, but have something, because if you have this something and you implement it, you have progressed. I always say to my students, remember that progress in speaking, it does happen one phrase at a time. We feel that it's so inefficient, but it's not. It's how it happens. It doesn't happen in a way that I sit there and I feel like, now I will learn everything, right? No, you always learn one thing at a time. Sometimes you have a breakthrough and you're like, oh, this is how the whole thing works. Yes, but this also appears when you do a lot of the small steps. And then something will open up in your brain and you'll be like, oh, now I get it, right? Because you have implemented enough examples of it to be able to get it on that deeper level. So this is very, very important, not to get frustrated by working on, let's say, 3 phrases during that lesson, rather than noting down a million and be like, I will learn them sometime. And you will not. Use that unique opportunity to implement now. Your brain doesn't want to implement now, yeah? Your brain wants to just chill out, but push it a little bit and implement. The first thing to think about always when sitting in a conversation course is stepping out of your comfort zone, at least a little bit, because that's where the learning happens. So practice the new phrase rather than repeating the old thing. Change the partner even if you don't feel like it. And by the way, one more comment on this one. When you have reached the B1 level or higher, and specifically this happens when we reach the B1 level, there is what has been called by others the OK plateau. And what that means that at B1 you are able to speak about most things in an okay way, and you know you're making mistakes, you know you're not expressing yourself in an elegant way, you want to get better, but you are stuck in that level. One thing is that it is a much quicker journey to get from 0 to A2 than it is from A2 to B1, and even much longer journey from B1 to B2. It's not the same stretches. It might look like it, but it's totally not. So from B1 to B2, that's the longest way. So that's one thing, that it might seem that you're not progressing even though you are. But very often, why we are not progressing is because we don't push ourselves out of the comfort zone, because we already know how to speak about everything somehow. And we so desperately want to get better and more efficient, more elegant and everything, but we know how to say it somehow. So we sit there in our cozy comfort zone and we say it somehow. Yeah. So this is an increasing problem with the increasing level. At A1, you need to push yourself out of your comfort zone because there is always something new and you need it. Otherwise, you're not going to express yourself, right? At B1, you can always say it somehow. So you say it somehow and then you feel stuck. So this is a hard thing from B1 and above. And getting better than B2, for example, it is fully possible to become better than B2, but again, it's hard because you have to have this inner motivation and keep pushing yourself into testing the new stuff. So that's just an additional comment to the first point of pushing yourself out of your comfort zone. And the second was having an agenda on your own, not depending on your teacher to offer things. And if they offer things but they are not great fit, have always your little list ready, and then you'll be learning something, even if the course is maybe not great, or even if it's a free offer, if it's some språk cafe somewhere which doesn't have any pedagogical framework or anything. You can be learning much more than just randomly, and you won't be learning that many mistakes either. It's okay to make mistakes, but sometimes it's unnecessary. And very often we reach a point like B1 and above when we want to start getting rid of them, right? Because we know that, oh, I don't sound the way I want, I don't express myself in such an elegant way as I want. And then it's really crucial to have these phrases prepared that you know are right and start putting them in. And by the way, if you haven't prepared any phrases like that, you can just happily reach for your mobile and check your vocabulary application. Maybe there are some nice phrases in there that you can use. Or maybe you can just think of the first thing that you would say to that question you're discussing in your first language, and you can just double check with Google Translate or DeepL. They do a great job nowadays. And you check it, and when the teacher goes around to help the groups, you can be like, is this formulation right? Can I use it? And they will tell you, right? And you have your phrase, and it's spot on because that's the thing you would feel like saying. So it's very much okay to also use technology to help you figure out what it is, but then you put it aside and you implement yourself.